card through some more textbooks. So if it was class 8 and 9 where history was being distorted, now there is more vitriol, a communal angle that stands out, and of course, continued disinformation and misinformation. So let's try and understand what makes the textbook of class 10 students. So in the textbook of class 10 students, Pakistan gives its children communal lessons. Now sample this. The textbook blames India for disturbing the balance of power in the region with its 3 nuclear tests in Pokhran in May 1998. History and of course the way it's chronicled, the information is otherwise, you and me know, but also accuses India of forcing Pakistan to launch a series of nuclear tests. So somewhere you see the justification for everything that nation has done is buttered and it's perhaps pegged on India. Speaking on the Kashmir issue, this is the next one. Pakistan in its textbooks accuses Hindus and Sikhs of organizing genocide of the Muslim population to further their agenda. So what happened on the 22nd of October 1947? But however, textbooks don't speak about the number of Hindus and Sikhs killed. In every other chapter, Pakistan points out to India being a hostile neighbor. The textbook for class 10 underlines religion as the basis of Pakistan's claim over Kashmir and claims that the Muslim population wanted Kashmir to be a part of Pakistan. It also squarely blames India for not settling the Kashmir dispute and goes on to call India arrogant and that Kashmir is important to Pakistan due to its Muslim identity. The textbook not only blames India of occupying Kashmir, but also accuses India of playing a key role in the separation of East Pakistan, which today is Bangladesh. The textbook claims Indian propaganda about West Pakistan's exploitation of East Pakistan infused hatred in the people of East Pakistan, which resulted in a full-scale rebellion in the province. The source is the Federal Textbook Board, Islamabad, but very clearly it is spread right across, ladies and gentlemen, across all provinces. Vatsala Shrangi, Assistant Editor, News 18, who's been scouring through pages and pages of these history books, is with us. Vatsala, are you all right? Is your mind still boggling based on what you have read?
Yeah, I'm fine.
So take us through what you found. 8 standard, 9 standard and now 10 standard.
So these are class 10 textbooks.
Yeah.
And it is, what I would like to say is that it is more of a series of accusations against the Indian government, pre-independence and post-independence, as well as a lot of anti-Hindu stuff, which is not just incorrect, it is also morally inappropriate. You know, there are references to India not allowing to settle Kashmir dispute. That is one. Then organizing genocide of Muslim population is a completely distorted fact, because it does not mention anything about Hindus and Sikhs being killed on the other hand. Then again the book refers, in every other line or so, it kind of refers to India as a hostile neighbor, as a neighbor who's not cooperating, who's not who's not allowing the other side to be, basically. This is chapter first, which talks about of the class 10 textbook, which is called Pakistani History of Pakistani Studies. So it is under this headline, Important Steps of Nawaz Sharif's Government. So here it says,
can you move your right hand away from your right hand, just your right hand, hold the paper on your left hand and keep it down, please keep it down. Yeah, there you go. And
is it better? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So India was officially invited to resolve the Kashmir dispute, but these efforts did not succeed due to Indian arrogance. Hindu extremists demolished the historic Babri Masjid in 1992, and the National Assembly of Pakistan condemned this brutal incident by passing a resolution. So here it outrightly calls India arrogant. You know, the use of these adjectives to explain a historical event in a state syllabus is this is completely.
In these textbooks, did you ever find mention of how many temples have been destroyed over in Pakistan? How historical sites and sites which are more than 1,000 years old have been left to waste, or has that been mentioned? Has there been a mention of the plan that is raiders, that is mentioned in a book that was printed, first printed in 1970 by a former major of the Pakistan army, saying how they plotted the invasion of sovereign Indian territory, that is Jammu and Kashmir? Does that anywhere find mention in these textbooks?
No, so there is no mention of what happened from the other side. The only mentions the book makes, a series of blames, accusations, is of India and of India's people and its leaders.
So whatever has been said and done and whatever has happened, it's all fault is only India's. So
entirely.
Yeah. So India, Hindus, Hindustan are to blame, and it's all their fault. And this is being taught to children in the 8th standard, 9th standard, and 10th standard.
Right.
Vatsala, please stay on with us. Bilal Baloch, activist, is with us. Rabinder Sachdev, strategic affairs expert, is also with us. Namaste, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Mr. Bilal Baloch, did you also study this kind of narrative in Pakistan? Do they ever mention of what they did with Balochistan? They blame India for not having any military equipment, but in 1947...
Anand, I wrote disgusting things. Be sure what I'm going to tell you, might you people will shock too much. I quote here Pakistan studies for the class 11 and the 12, page number 33. Hindus and Sikhs, they are enemy of the humanity. Can you believe this? I repeat, page number 33, the book Pakistan Studies for 11th and the 12th. I mean, this is the standard of the books. And the same thing, they repeat in the social sciences, Hindus are cheater, Hindus are enemy of Muslim, Hindus do not treat their daughters well. I mean, these don't go on, especially on this. Today is a Friday. Anand, I'm telling you, today is a Friday. In every mosque, in Jummah Khutbah, they raise their hand, they will demand to God, oh God, destroy Hindus. Oh God, destroy Israel. Oh God, destroy America. Oh God, destroy Jews. Oh God, destroy Christians. This is the practice in Pakistan, unfortunately, going on till today. Till today, I challenge. And here in your show, if anybody can take me quote, I am ready. Page number 33 for the student class 11 and 12. And I quote these things, what I'm saying, it is come in the BBC, reported by BBC. It's not my quote. This is I quoting BBC. There was a student, his name is Rajesh Kumar. He is a student of the 11 and 12.
I think the book my friend is mentioning is not published by textbook board or in schools. I have checked thoroughly that in class 9th and 10th, there is nothing against Hinduism or anybody in 9th and textbooks and the curriculum of all the national curriculum, which is part of 99.90% schools of the country. This is one thing. Other thing is, as my friend was saying, that if somebody is in Jummah prayers saying objectionable things or writing objectionable things, they are not accepted in society. Number one. Number two, every month, Government of Pakistan, Government of Punjab issue a list of people who are banned from delivering speeches or khutbah in mosque if that is objectionable. And in schools, if there's any book which is objectionable, the human rights activists and 3 other departments are responsible to watch and monitor such books and that material which is against any religion or person or creed.
Dr. Saeed Ilai, I'm going to bring...
Let me finish.
Ji, okay.
Just give me 2 minutes, complete. Then I will reply you.
Please complete.
I listen to you, please.
Please complete.
The problem is that every country, including India, including Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, there are people who have diverse views, extreme views. I mean, don't want to mention names in India. There are many groups who are extremist. Also, same is in Pakistan, because initially they were the same race, but then ultimately they have converted or they made their own countries. They had their own history, politics, heroes, villains. This goes on. But I tell you one thing, that the government of Pakistan, the society of Pakistan, 99% Pakistanis, they hate, hatred, enmity, and propaganda.
Dr. Saeed Ilai, I am going to bring in Vatsala
Krishna
Shrangi,
Kumari
our
is a
assistant
Hindu
editor,
senator in
who has
Pakistan.
scored through the textbooks.
Very
Sir,
humble
I'm going to
background.
bring the conversation back to not what's happening on ground, what's being said in mosques, what's being said anywhere else in any institute. We are going to go back to what's being taught in the schools to 8th, 9th and 10th standard students. Vatsala Shrangi, Dr. Saeed Ilai says there is nothing objectionable in the textbooks. Would you please?
Sir, if you go by the books which we have here on the screen as well, you can actually read through, and I can read another para for him to, you know. So here this is class 10 book again, and it is talking, it is actually blaming India for the separation of East Pakistan. So this is which is now Bangladesh. So it reads that Indian propaganda about West Pakistan's exploitation of East Pakistan infused hatred in the people of East Pakistan, which resulted in a full-scale rebellion in the province and ultimate dismemberment of Pakistan. So they've blamed India, and then they're saying it was Indian propaganda. So I don't know if we have read books like this in our curriculum.
And the textbook celebrates Direct Action Day.
Yes, that is another
The textbook
one.
celebrates Direct Action Day.
Yes, I can read that bit, which is very, very important to be read out to people who are not believing that this is actually a fact in this book. So Direct Action Day, I'll just read out the entire para. The Viceroy should have invited Muslim League to form government after Congress's refusal, but he failed to keep his promise. On this break of trust, the Muslim League decided to withdraw its approval of the cabinet mission plan and announced that direct action was the only course left open for her. Although the Congress had not accepted the cabinet mission, yet on August 12, 1946, the Viceroy invited Pandit Nehru to form interim government. Protesting on this, the Muslim League called the Muslims to celebrate 16th of August as the Direct Action Day. The Muslims throughout India were appealed to protest, and Muslim dignitaries of British titles were asked to surrender their titles. So this does not only just they're not just celebrating Direct Action Day. They're not telling students that they actually celebrated a day where thousands of people were killed in communal violence. They're actually indirectly blaming Hindus also. I'll read that bit out also. So here, the appeal proved very effective. The Muslims expressed their resentment through protest rallies and processions. It's here.
Yeah.
The appeal proved very effective. The Muslims expressed their resentment through protest rallies and processions taken out in all parts of India. The Hindus retaliated by attacking on them. Thousands of people were killed in Calcutta in Hindu-Muslim clashes. With no time, the whole of India was taken over by communal frenzy.
Now,
So,
Rabinder
yeah.
Sachdev ji, please weigh in. What would you like to say, tell Dr. Saeed Ilai?
Acha, I think I'm very surprised, my dear, that my learned friends are saying few things which are not written by the author or by the book. These are the statements of different politicians of that time, Mr. Nehru, Mr. Gandhi, Mr. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and they had differences on Congress to Muslim League, Nehru Report, Khilafat Movement, 3rd June Plan, and that was the difference between all those leaders who were once in a one-party Congress. But once they made Muslim League, they have differences, and these are the statements of different leaders about each other.
Are these 1 minute? Let's clarify that. What did you read? What you read right now, Vatsala, is this a comment by somebody, or is it part of the textbook itself? Is it quoting?
It's not quoting anyone. It's not quoting
The
anyone.
textbook is quoting the statements of
No,
different leaders.
the textbook is not quoting the statements of leaders. These are not statements of leaders, sir. Wherever the leaders have been quoted, we have quoted the leaders
so
separately.
it wasn't
They are
part of
quoting
it
the
wasn't part of any
history and
quote,
the
sir.
statements of leaders.
No, they are not. They are not,
They
sir,
were
Dr.
not.
Saeed Ilai. That's exactly what we are saying. Yes, Vatsala.
If they are if
Please
IRF
hear her out.
was opposing Nehru report,
Please hear her out.
and
Please.
Gandhi Sahab was opposing Khilafat
No.
movement. So they
What
were
Gandhi
statements
said,
against each other.
what Jinnah said, what Nehruji said, each of them are different. That's not, we are saying what the book is writing. The authors of the book, this
is
textbook have said.
mentioning their views,
No,
not
it's not their
the
view.
writer's
Vatsala,
views.
please clarify.
Sir, so I'll tell you. So wherever the book has their views, they put them in quotes. And here, this particular thing about the Direct Action Day is under this heading, popularity of the Muslim League. So they are, the heading is also popularity of Muslim League, which depends on this particular day, which is being celebrated as, you know, Muslim League's show of power.
What they say about the Arya Samaj, what they say about
Yes.
Mahatma Gandhi, these are all not somebody's comments, sir. This is what is being said in that book as part of the opinion. Rabinder, 1 minute. Rabinder Sachdev ji. Rabinder Sachdev ji.
May I? Actually, Anand, thank you. Honestly, I think it's a great issue or a topic that you've raised up. Fundamentally, we may remember this, phrase, child is the father of the man. What we are taught in our childhood is what we become as adults. Now, out here, you're talking about, books of the 8th, 9th, etc. I think the class 3rd or 4th book says, Islam is the most superior religion. People of other religions are dishonest. Only the people of Islam are the most honest. So you see, it starts there. That's one. Islam as being the superior most. And then as it goes into the upper classes, it's their version of history. That's the other thing now. It's their version. And for Pakistan, they had to create their own version of history for their nation, which started actually in the 70s under Zia, when he went out for Islamiyat and converting all curriculum into Islam, enforcing that. And therein after that, these layers and layers of, the way they understand and the anti-Hindu, anti-India elements of, let's say, current history have crept in. So point is, it is the programming of the mind. It starts with the child. And I much appreciate what our Pakistani colleague is saying. Absolutely, sir, we wish that were to be so. But what we are seeing in the textbooks is what the children read. I'll give you a quick example in 10 seconds. I used to do a lot of work in Russia in the early 90s. Due to a communist country, no Russian could travel outside of Russia. All they knew about India was, Bollywood films, song, dance, beautiful flowers. When they first came to India, many of them, when they went back, they were shocked. They said, you know what? I never imagined India is like this. So it is in the programming of the mind. So when the children are taught such pieces of information, such versions, obviously they'll grow up to think their worldview along those lines. So it is I think it's a great topic that you guys are picking up.
The simple aspect is people can form political views, they can have their own opinions about nations, their own politics, country, ideology, but that's at a stage when you have reached a certain level of maturity. Is this what and is this how facts, history should be taught? Subject should be taught at these levels is a larger question we are asking. Dr. Saeed Elahi, as I come back to you, let's just put out one more set of excerpts and then I'll take your comments, sir. Now, have a look at this. This is 11th and 12th standard. So it's a senior grade, higher secondary that we are getting in, ladies and gentlemen. So for students of class 11 and 12, the textbook starts with the very premise of the two-nation theory, being as one based on the fact that Muslims and non-Muslims of India were separate, the othering. And here also Pakistan continues with its Hindu bashing. Let's have a look at this. What are they saying? In the textbook, Pakistan labels Hindus as extremists and that the Congress too is overpowered by these Hindu extremists. Historical facts about the partition of Bengal, Kashmir issue also being distorted in these textbooks. The book not just celebrates Direct Action Day, an event in history when so many Hindus were killed in communal riots that broke out in Bengal in 1946, it also puts the blame for the same on Hindus, which is not only factually incorrect, but even morally inappropriate. At every other point in the book, the INC and its Hindu leaders have been accused of religious bias and shown as anti-Muslim. Even post-partition issues in New Pakistan have been squarely blamed on India and Hindu functionaries. So this is part of the textbook. Vatsala, take us through those operative parts. And is this an extension of what we saw yesterday in 8th and 9th standard?
It is definitely an extension of that. That was more about undivided India, and this is more about post-partition events. And then it also takes you back to the Kashmir issue. So I'll read the bit about this subhead, extremist Hindu movements. So this says it calls that the extremist Hindus actually ran an anti-Muslim movement. So I'll just read out this bit. The anti-Muslim movement Arya Samaj flourished in the last 2 decades of the 19th century. The movement aimed at reconverting Muslims to Hinduism. Bankim Chandra Chatterjee wrote a novel Anand Mat which provoked Muslims' religious sentiments. Anti-Muslim epic Bande Mataram was a part of this novel.
Dr. Saeed Ilai?
Yeah, I think my friends have told you many things in details. I think every country and nation has its own history and own facts, which are not acceptable by the other country, which is so-called enemies. So I think Indians, they have their own mindset and approach about Pakistan, Muslims, and their history. And same is with Pakistan. So the problem is that what we are writing is the history, how it happened in pre-partition India, what happened with the leaders, why they were together, why they were separated, what differences they have, and what was the result, and what was said by the leaders. And someone was talking about two-nation theory. So I think because all of us lived in subcontinent, most of them were from one race, but the matter started from the conversion. When some of them became Muslims, some of them became Sikhs, and somebody was mentioning about the killing of Hindus. I think in partition, maximum killings happened in the community of Muslims and Sikhs. So I think these all things are a long backstory where everybody has his own version, own views, on ideology, which cannot be changed.
So Sikhs are an extension of Hindus itself. Sikhs came out of every
Sorry?
Hindu family Sikhs came out of every Hindu family. The origin of Sikhi finds itself from every Hindu family, so that there could be warriors who could be sent to fight against Arabic or Muslim invasion. So that's history. The other fact, sir, it is Muhammad Ali Jinnah who himself is written saying that Hinduism and Islam should not be seen only as religion. They are also two forms of social order, and to think that they could ever cohabit is a pipe dream. Perhaps to prove Jinnah wrong, you see Bharat of today in 75 years of after 75 years of 1947, there are more Muslims in India and who are living harmoniously with Hindus and every other community in this country compared to what's happening in Pakistan, sir.
My dear sir,
the other part is, sir, there are Hindus
said,
in Pakistan too. So if your textbooks are saying Hindus cannot be trusted, does that mean only Hindus in India, or does that mean Hindus in Pakistan too?
No,
sir, because like I said, sir, very conveniently you have tried to stitch once again a narrative. History cannot be as part of a particular narrative, sir. History cannot be distorted.
Anand,
Bilal Baloch wants to ask you
something about Qaeda-e-Azam.
No, sir.
He might be a villain for you, but for us, he is a hero.
No, sir. Qaeda-e-Azam also, after his comment that Hindus and Muslims cannot live together, Qaeda-e-Azam dreamt of Pakistan as a secular state. He dreamt of Pakistan where everybody would be safe. Now, Bilal Baloch wants to say something, sir. Bilal Baloch wants to say something, and then Ravinder says, Bilal Baloch. Yes, Bilal Baloch.
I just asked one question. Said Saab, let me ask you one question. Said Saab, please let me ask you one question. Whatever you said,
that was not on the religion.
Said Saab, let me ask you one question. Can you define this in your books in social science? I quote social science. It is written there that Hindus were uncivilized for dressing before Muslims come to the India. Can you deny this?
No.
If you deny this, I will tell you
to
go and read this book, Social Science. It is written on your social science book. I quote. Let me finish. Don't jump, please.
Okay.
I was listening you very calmly. Okay, they were uncivilized before Muslims come to the India. It is come to the BBC. If you deny, take BBC in the court. But you people didn't take any action against BBC. And second, you said people are doing. You know, Mia Mittu, why is banned to come to the UK? Why? Because they know that Mia Mittu is doing all under the government. You people have to understand.
Okay, Bilal Baloch, let him respond. You made a charge. You made a charge. People like Mia Mittu have a free run. There are.
I didn't finish last thing. Can you deny this?
Sir, if you will take all the time,
Hindu and Sikh are enemy of the humanity. Can you deny this? You said this is not our books. Who approved the books? Even in the private school, who approved the books? Even you have no check and balance.
Okay, let Dr. Saeed Ilai. Please allow Dr. Saeed Ilai to respond.
I think my friend is not asking questions. He is delivering a speech, which I don't understand what he wants. The problem is,
he asked who approves these books, Dr. Saeed Ilai. The question is who's approving these books.
From Pakistan, please. Give me time so I can give my views, so my Indian friends can hear to me. About Sikhs you were talking about. Sikhs are doing a referendum all over the world against India, from Khalistan, from Canada to Australia. That is their own story. I will not mention that. I am saying that
you have
these
mentioned
incidents
it,
which you are,
but the fact is that
you are mentioning.
Okay, please sir,
Let
that
me
itself
finish,
is a
please.
distorted
If you are
narrative once
mentioning
again
these
pushed by the
things-
Pakistani state, because if it is indeed that Sikhs want their own place, then you should first free up Nankana Sahib and give up Panja Sahib, give up Kartarpur. Give it to the Sikhs. Give them their separate land, sir, first.
That is part of Pakistan now. Forget about
No,
that.
no, so why should that be
Partition
forgotten?
was-
Once again, see, distortion,
partition
sir.
was
Why
done
should
by
that be
that
forgotten?
not
If
by-
it is a
not by
land
me.
for the Sikhs, sir, then they would want
This
it where
country-
you said that the Sikh holy shrines are.
This-
So then Pakistan should give it out to the Sikhs first. They are not asking it off. So
The
this is
problem
again a
is, this
state-sponsored
country was divided by
mechanism.
Red
Once
Chippa,
again,
not
with
by
the whole
your
feeling
order,
of
but by
animosity.
ours.
Again, narrative game, sir. This is
This
again narrative
country-
game. I'll tell you
this
what.
country
Sir,
is
you please
divided
tell
so-
me. In Kashmir, you say that majority were Muslims even though the king was Hindu. So you wanted Kashmir. But Jinnah said he wanted
what you-
Junagadh
what you-
because
what you are
majority of the
doing in
population
Kashmir?
was Hindus, but the king was a Nawab.
What you
So
are-
so
what you are
clearly
doing with
clearly
Kashmiris,
you
you make
distort the
them
narrative.
slaves
You're on record doing
and-
it, sir. Rabinder Sachdev, final word, sir.
Yes, sure.
Kashmir is
Quick 2
governed
points.
by
See,
Kashmir
one
in
is
Pakistan,
the
not
version
by
of
India.
history. Find
Governor
whatever
General
version
is
they
a
want to put, that's
non-fictional.
even separate. The basic premise going back, child is the father of man, teaching children that Islam is the most superior form of religion. It starts there. All other religions are dishonest, etc., cannot be trusted. That's where it starts in the textbooks coming back, in the classes
Exactly.
3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Sir-
And then later on it graduates to the version of history which Pakistan wants to put out. So the
Ironically,
very
sir,
foundation
ironically,
itself is-
Imran Khan, Nawaz Sharif, Pervez Musharraf, Qamar Javed Bajwa, Faiz Hamid, all have been accused of corruption and of looting their own country.
Oh, absolutely. But the point is, you see, when the very foundation is the one wherein there is an ethnocentrism that we are the most superior religion, so to say, and there has to be hatred for the other. What is the narrative?
No,
of
no,
the
I think-
history,
No,
the
but
big
that's,
version,
sir,
etc.?
I'm just
is
saying,
there.
sir, I'm just saying if you were to go back by what Qaeda-e-Azam or as the Pakistanis call him, Muhammad Ali Jinnah said, two social orders which cannot cohabit. One social order practiced for 75 years in Pakistan, another social order practiced for 75 years in Hindustan, and we know where these two countries are today. And that itself is perhaps quod erat demonstrandum. Pakistan's deluge of disinformation, ladies and gentlemen. The partition theory, partition showed naked bias, injustice towards Muslims. Hindus destroyed office records before leaving Pakistan is what's been said. Pakistan given a small part of share in the military assets. Military assets were given to Pak weren't even in working condition. This is what has been put. But the two immediate invasions and wars that the Pakistanis waged were right around the time that partition happened. That is, at that time, Pakistan used its military might. If I were to go by the book written by a major who was there along with Liaquat Ali Khan, the book called Raiders, and Bilal Baloch can outline what happened in Balochistan.
You see, if you demonize the other right from your very babyhood, childhood, then it's simple to cherry pick the notions which support your view, which is existing, that the other is the demon, is the devil. So the narrative in the textbooks later on which comes in, or the version of history of Pakistan, fine, they want to imagine that their nation had a greatness. We all understand, every nation would. But you cherry pick those notions which reinforce or which are actually being, filtered out because you already presumed, you already taught that the other, and not only Hinduism, by the way, all other religions, okay, are,
Yeah, Christianity, Jains,
let's
Buddhists,
say-
anybody and everybody who's not a Muslim.
exactly, are dishonest and are ulterior, inferior to you. So that's if what you're taught, and on top of it, you layer it with the, tensions of
Right.
India, Pakistan, and our origins as partition nations. So you have all the required cocktail to create whatever narrative you want. But
Right.
again, the foundation, the teaching of the foundation, that's what I'm saying. The story that you've done is amazingly interesting. It's a reminder for all of us all across the world that whatever we are taught in the childhood is what we become as adults.
If Pakistan has been envisaged as the country of an Islamic republic and it will be only the rule of Islam, it is part of their constitution. That's who they choose to be. But where has it brought them as they choose to be as a nation, and where has it brought them, where is it going to take them forward? It's the people, the current generation and the current leadership and the intelligentsia have got to decide that. We've just highlighted some of the aspects which we believe should be corrected. India has taken a very clear position that they are going to put a commentary of what happened, but they are not going to layer it with opinion and layer it with a narrative, at least in the formative years. What happens thereafter as people study is a different point, but should it be done in these formative years in their classrooms? That's the question, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a very short break. Thank all our guests. See you on the other side. Pakistani textbooks claim that Hindus wanted Hindi as the official language and that Hindi was pitched as an official language instead of Urdu. And riots broke out over Hindi versus Urdu as the official language. And these textbooks don't stop there. They blame India for the partition, never saying anything about the role of Muhammad Ali Jinnah. The books say that Pakistan territory was divided into two parts and it was Pakistan that was separated by hostile Indian land. The mass violence during the partition has been blamed entirely on the Indian government. The books also claim that partition led to the massacre of Muslims and Sikhs and that Muslims were forced to leave their homes and migrate. The books go on to talk about the problems faced by the newly formed state of Pakistan and largely blame India for this. They also refer to the Khilafat movement of 1919. It says that Muslims learned that they couldn't trust Hindus as a result of the Khilafat movement and that they needed to create unity among themselves. The book also claims that the Khilafat movement was introduced for Muslims and was meant as a concept of nationhood for Muslims of India. So let me now bring in our guests who are joining us on this. Shehzad Poonawala is BJP National Spokesperson. Omar Altaf is a senior Pakistan journalist. Omar Altaf, let me start with you because, for me, the most startling thing has been the reference to Mahatma Gandhi as a leader of only the Hindus and the Indian National Congress as a party of only the Hindus. I don't think any leader in the history of the subcontinent fought for independence or for Hindu-Muslim unity as much as Gandhi did.
Absolutely, you're right in highlighting the greatness of Gandhi, the founder of India. I think no attempts. I think Gandhi's role is universally accepted. But in Modi's India, it's not accepted. In Modi's India, his killers are glorified. As you must be aware, how RSS thinks.
But Mr. Altaf, I'm asking you about Pakistani textbooks.
No, I think any textbook that criticizes or paints Gandhi in a negative way, it should be condemned.
So why are Pakistani kids being taught that? Why are Pakistani kids in classes 8, 9 in Pakistani schools being taught that Gandhi was just a leader of the Hindus?
I think that curriculum is not right for young minds and it should be rectified. That's my opinion. But how do you have the audacity to point out Pakistan's flaws? We don't accept Gandhi as a founding father.
Nobody said that you should accept Gandhi as the founding father of Pakistan. Everybody knows Mr. Jinnah was the founding father of Pakistan.
You accept and yet demonize him and glorify his killers.
No, that's a separate matter. I'll ask Shehzad that. I'm asking you a simple question. Do you think Gandhi was a communal leader? Do you think that Gandhi did nothing for Hindu-Muslim unity? Do you think that Gandhi was a leader only of the Hindus?
I don't think that Gandhi was a leader of only Hindus. He played a role for Hindu-Muslim unity. Mm-hmm. But then some of the things, I think he wasn't assertive enough, or maybe the hardliners ruled the roost at that time. So his camaraderie with Jinnah at one point was well known. But why don't you also do you condemn the killers of Gandhi being glorified in Modi's
India? Okay, let me ask Shehzad Poonawala that. The contention by Mr. Altaf is that the killers of Gandhi are being feted by your party.
I'll get to that in just 30 seconds. But first, let me tell you that, the question that you're asking Omar Altaf is to basically deny his existence. If they believe genuinely that Mahatma Gandhi was the symbol of Hindu-Muslim unity, it obliterates Pakistan's existence. Because the very fact that Jinnah wanted Pakistan is because he felt that Muslims' interests wouldn't be secured by a country like India. So his entire existence is predicated on the fact that Mahatma Gandhi.
One second, Omar, let him finish. Please, Omar, one second.
Omar, it's called tolerance. It's called tolerance. I know you neither have theological or constitutional basis for it, but that's how debates in India work. So you want to try and practice a little bit of tolerance, theologically and constitutionally difficult for you, but try to learn it from an Indian Muslim. It helps. Now please pipe down and wait your turn. That's how we do it in India. So let me explain to you what is problem of Pakistan. Pakistan's problem is that it is the only country in the world that lives in a schizophrenic bipolar hatred of another country. Its existence is built on hate.
Namaste, ladies and gentlemen, and Jai Hind. There is a concept called Sangat in Bharatiya Parampara, and how we would say, that is, you get in the company of. And it's not often that you are able to get in the company of people who know, not just knowledge, but also are wise. So today we have an Acharya and a Panditji. Both are names who need no introduction, but with whom speaking about Bharat, Bharatiyata and a message to the world is going to be an engaging conversation that I am looking forward to. So Acharya David Frawleyji and Pandit Satish Sharmaji, namaste, and thank you very, very much for your time. I think this is like a photo moment for me, and that's so one more tick of the bucket list for being able to do this. I've been wanting to meet you for a long time, and it's a pleasure to speak with you. Let me ask you and start with you. What is the perception of Bharat in the West?
The perception of Bharat is actually at two levels. One, there's of course the old magic, mystery, mysticism, spiritual knowledge, yoga, Vedanta that is there. And then there is still the shadow of the old colonial, backward, superstitious, or socially not progressive. So two very opposite views are there. But there is definitely a penetration of the Bharatiya civilization into the West, and also connecting to the nature, the healing, a kind of a way beyond just the media or the academia, whereas the academia has a kind of negativity. But say, for example, Yogananda's autobiography of a yogi sells over 5 million copies, and most of these academics, nobody knows their name.
That's interesting. But we also see a narrative which says Hindutva is fascist. Yes. Modi is championing a brand of Hindutva which is like Hitler pushing Nazism. Do you agree, disagree that this is on the rise? Or is it a smaller section of the West?
Well, it is a smaller section, but it's name calling. You know, it's not any type of a critique. For example, take Modi. He's a champion of ecology. He's helping the poor. He's doing so many things that are not connected to the so-called fascist. And we have this rising duality in the West, including the internal conflicts and the tendency to want to demonize one side or the other. So India is being caught a little bit in that particular narrative, even though it is outside of it. And unfortunately, the narratives that have come up in India, like the Marxist influence, then cast its shadow on the Indians in the West. So we need to really look deeply at the problem, but India is rising, Indic traditions are rising, and a lot of the problems are coming from the jealousy of their success and how they are penetrating and moving and going beyond boundaries, even though they don't have overt financial, state, or even media support.
So once again, there is, Bharat, its time has come, is what the Prime Minister would say. I've asked you about what's happening in America, in Europe. You've been part of the Raisina dialogues also recently. You've seen, and you were sharing with us just before we went into roll or record. So in Europe, is this again a problem? The way Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his leadership, is the political messaging now overshadowing what Bharat stands for? Your thoughts.
Thank you. And Anandji, I'd just like to show everybody how indebted I am to you for having brought me into the presence of one of my heroes and a person who I've been appreciating from a long way.
So we've got a fan club growing here.
Absolutely. Normally in the company of Acharyaji, I'd be happy to just sit and listen.
Yes.
And so I'm going to sort of disturb the air with my crude words.
And please feel free to ask questions of him.
So, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. You mentioned Raisina. I spotted something at the dialogues, and that was I spotted an East European voice. The voice that the world has heard so far from Europe has been the West European voice. And yet there in numbers and new voices, leaders who we've not seen, they were standing and sitting on platforms in a framework created by India, openly discussing their problems. And the old voice of Western Europe was actually relegated to the sidelines. Tony Blair, I think, passed through and wasn't given any particular significance. There was more significance given to the new voice of rising Italy. The Croatian speakers did a wonderful, wonderful contribution, and they all expressed openly, we would love to embrace this new India. We want to be part of the positivity, the dynamism, the resurgence that is readily apparent. So I think in Europe we're going to see this increasing. We're going to see the Eastern European voice start to lead where the Western European voice sadly begins to falter, begins to crumble, and has difficulty finding its feet again as the old colonialist ideologies start to crash and implode. And so Europe has hope, but I think the hope, the centre has shifted now towards the east. Croatia, the Hungarians were there, and it was lovely to be in touch with those people. The other thing I noticed was the presence of a lot more European leaders who were women. And that was a very positive energy. There was an openness to acknowledging problems and looking for a practical solution, as mothers, are known for doing. And that was another very positive thing. If you have a look at the voices that we've seen in the past, Willy Brandt and Macron and many who still have got colonial baggage to dispense with, they weren't the voices that were controlling the platforms and the stage. So I think that's a wonderful development, a great opportunity. And as the whole shift towards India and the East occurs, I think Europe will start to see some degree of resurgence.
So you're seeing a shift towards the East. You're saying Indic thinking is only growing, it's permeating and beyond boundaries without any overt push or monetary push behind it, financial push behind it. But then, Acharya ji, let me ask you this. Why is it Seattle City Council passing a law including caste as discriminatory?
Yes.
Why did we have to see what is happening with Cisco? And now we are saying institutions, universities are going to say recognize Hindus based on their castes and separate them. Why is all of this happening?
As I mentioned, there's a certain jealousy from the success of the Hindu community, that the most affluent, the most educated, in a way the most traditional, and yet also the most understanding of the kind of the new narratives in medicine, science, and all of that. And some of these narratives, like are actually, again, are coming from the left, and including the left in India, infecting the left in the United States, and wanting to downplay that particular success. At the same time, there's a tremendous polarization inside the United States. Those laws just barely passed. One of that main person involved, as we know, she almost lost her position on a recall. And there's a greater division in the United States. For example, there's greater violence now against the Jewish people, against Asians in general. So India is kind of caught up in this kind of conflict division in the West. And now, because of the success of the Indians, they're identified more with the successful people in the West, and now they want to say that, okay, Indians are, what they say, they're no longer the minority, so they are now supporting the majority.
Yes, and they're also they're no longer poor. They are the haves, they are not the have-nots, especially in contributing to the economy. Is that making a difference, Acharya ji?
Yes, in fact, of course, the criticism of the Indians for so long is they're poor, superstitious, uneducated. And now we're being criticized for having too much money, too much education, too much political power. But you can see how the anti-India, anti-Hindu narrative has reinvented itself when you have India's success. And yet most of the, you might say, transformative aspects, whether it's ecology, whether it's mind-body medicine, whether it is this understanding of universal consciousness and recognition of the value of native traditions, is coming out of India. So India's role as the guru is also there. And so there is a certain backlash, but that's shadow, only shows that the light is shining better.
How beautifully put. You agree, disagree? Or is it now going to be a period where those who are Hindu are going to be facing more attacks? We saw what happened in Leicester. We see a narrative being pushed. Hindutva forces coming in from India, coming to live here, bringing their brand of Hindus. All of these terms are being pushed out. We see what's happening in Australia.
I think there's a bit of good news, but it's also a little bit worrying. It's been a shock as to how quickly a nation which is known and trumpets itself as being the custodian of equality, the beauty of the Constitution, the way in which the founding fathers enshrined so many wonderful ideas to prevent power being grabbed by a few, all of that seems to have evaporated within the space of maybe even 6 months. And we've seen how quickly authorities, persons in positions of power, how quickly they are happy to discard the need for evidence, how happy they are to discard the need for a theatre within which both parties can sit and talk and exchange and maybe come to an understanding, and how quick they were to embrace the notion that actually these Hindus, whose profile in terms of a community is the complete antithesis of what they're being represented at, and yet they embraced it and rushed to deliver an ordinance. So for me, this has highlighted that the powers, those in influence, those who are boards, those who are running councils and Congress and Senate, that minority is actually very easily swayed. An appeal to emotion, an appeal to virtue signaling, an appeal to that feeling of being a pious person who is doing good, the old saviour mentality. All of those personalities seem to be running rampant at the level of authority and decision making. But I get a great deal of confidence from the levels underneath. You know, in our Sanatani tradition, we have no doubt that to be born a human being is a wonderful thing. It's a pinnacle of many, many lifetimes of endeavour and evolution. So for us, human beings in their natural form are great, and the vast majority of people are good. And so I think as these instances occur, our community gets an opportunity to remind the majority everywhere we are of what our reality is, of how much we actually work with them. I also think that it's an invitation to our community to now step out of the shadows. We have been helping to build economies and to build societies which are prosperous, which educate more and more children than ever before. But now I think we have to shoulder the responsibility and assume the need for us to take authority and start to influence policy. Now, the moment that that sort of boundary becomes crossed once or twice by our people, it seems to be deemed to be a transgression by those who have been the custodians of the reins of power. And their response is always the same. Those persons who have grasped power through adharmic means, they respond with adharmic responses.
Even in the Gita, you have Bhagavan saying that it's ability and action, guna and karma, on which I have divided the 4 varnas. Chatur varnam maya shristha, guna karma vibhagasa. But that's lost on us as a society. When we say cleansing is internal, do you think even under the current disposition under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, enough has been done to make the society aware? Because the statistics say that by 2030, India will have the most employable population across the world. The world will be hiring from India because we would have about 750 million people ready to be employed, and the world will not have such numbers. But these employable people, will they be ready, rooted in our Sanskriti? Isn't that a challenge?
It is a challenge because of where the education is going. And that is why the Indian education, the Bharatiya Sanskriti, must be taught. And that is also why, for example, all Hindu children should be taught the fundamentals of yoga and Vedanta before they go to school so they don't get the wrong narratives. And it's also why in India you have to be political. You know, Hindus are the least political of all the religious groups in the world, not the most political. And the political tradition of India is one of embracing nature and the life of the universe. It's not an anthropocentric system of one ideology imposing itself over others. It doesn't look upon, as I say, the functions are different, but looks upon one being in all these different factors. So the education has to change. And the most enlightened minds in the world for centuries have gone to India, whether it's Thoreau or Emerson or even Aldous Huxley. There's so many throughout the world, and even Voltaire, we can go on and on. They look to India for the guidance. So those teachings have to go on. What happens is that we get influenced by the initial media that comes out quickly. And that moves on outrage, division, conflict, anger. But we have to look to a deeper view. And if we do that, we see that the Indian view is more planetary, more universal, more ecological and spiritual than the models we have coming out of the other groups, particularly the extreme political groups. And remember, fascist and communists were all Europeans in the beginning, and they're all based upon European nationalists, whether it was German, whether it was Italian, whether it was Russian. Understand India according to its own dharmic values and traditions. And remember that the European model doesn't measure the entire universe. In fact, it's an outdated 20th century model. We need a new Bharatiya 21st century model.
Before I come to you, Panditji, I just have another question, Acharyaji. As a parent in this generation who has young kids, how do I show them the right path? How do I, in this current education system that's available for me, how do I teach my children to be proud of our country's heritage and culture, to know about it, and so that they can answer this very simple question, why are you a Hindu?
You have to share it with them in your own life, whether it is your personal sadhana, your puja room in the house, attending pilgrimages, going to the temples, and of course making it an adventure. Pilgrimage is one of the greatest adventures, and showing the deeper dimensions. Shiva is the transcendent reality. Shiva is not just some Hindu deity or Hindu god. Have creativity, have enthusiasm, and show the connections that Sanatana Dharma pervades all of nature. The trees are conscious, the rocks are conscious. Shiva is the mountain. Embrace the whole of life. Make it something vital to the children, and remove them from just looking at screens to experiencing the reality of their own mind, as well as the contemplative reality behind nature, and learn to emulate great gurus, rishis, sages. You've had so many in the whole Indian independence movement, and even till today. Create that role model, and again, make it the what is sought after. We all want freedom, right?
Yes.
But the Western idea of freedom is the freedom to get what you want, which is the freedom to be bound to desire. It's an outer freedom of possession, but the inner freedom is a freedom of creativity, awareness, a transcendence, and embracing all oneness.
Yeah, very well said there, Acharyaji, and I think all of us need to learn from that. Now, coming to you, Panditji, how do you counter the academia across the Western institutions who are driving these narratives, and a lot of them are from India?
Actually, Anandji, it's not too difficult. The understanding that we have is that knowledge transmutes into wisdom when it's tempered with experience, reflection, contemplation, deep introspection as well. So there's a lot of noise that is coming out of the West. When we look at what's being produced by Western academia, through the lens and through the framework of our traditional knowledge systems, you actually see that there's a lot of noise. Pushpitam Vacham on steroids is what emerges. And it's almost as though what they are doing is creating straw men all the time. They are creating armies of straw men and focusing the rest of the world's attention on these straw men, and then we get attacked or we get undermined or we get demeaned in some way, shape or form. The solution to that is to not take ownership of those straw men and not to give credence and authority to those who are creating those straw men. And I have this conversation many times in the UK, and I always check the adhikar of the person who is engaging in a conversation with me as to whether he or she even has the right to ask that question. And more often than not, I'd say 9 times out of 10, they don't have the right, they haven't earned the wisdom, they haven't done the practices themselves to make sure that they as containers of knowledge are actually clean. In our tradition, we clean the container and then we pour knowledge into it so that the knowledge is not in any way, shape or form disfigured. Whereas in the West, they pour lots of information and lots of knowledge without any attention to the container. which is why we have in the West so many academics. We have more PhDs, and Harvard is just spawning academics and people who are very verbose and literate and vociferous. But where is the character?
Yeah.
You know, we have more economists than ever before, and yet the economy is crumbling. We have more physicians than ever before, and yet the national health is disappearing. We have more psychiatrists than ever before, and yet suicides and mental distress are escalating. And that's because the containers themselves are not evolving. There's no mechanism in those societies to help those containers evolve. From our point of view, there is one other thing that we should always remember, and that is that we were known as Aryavrat, right?
Yeah.
Arya is nobility.
Yeah.
And if what you want to do is to have your children, succeeding generations follow you, children look at something aspirational. And if you are boring, if you are not possessed of charm and delight, and if you look as a being who is not enjoying the fact of existence, no matter how wonderful your quotes from scripture, it doesn't register with children.
Yeah.
Children are great hypocrisy detectors. So you have to be what you want them to be.
Correct, exactly.
And so the more and more characters we get who entertain our youngsters and who engage them, the better it will be. You know, I was speaking at Arth the other day, and I looked into the audience, and often the audience is possibly even older than I am, which is saying something. But the audience at Arth this year was dynamic young children,
Young.
18 to 26, 27, and a few people older than that. And what I was absolutely excited by was the enthusiasm to engage and ask questions. You know, in the past, they were only given one tableau, that this is the world, this is who you are. But now they have an alternative. And that youthful energy is saying, okay, we've got two alternatives, I want to work it out.
Work it out.
And so they're churning it. And so we have to give them the answers that we can contribute to that churn. And their dynamism is what encourages me. And the attitude and the orientation is what encourages me to understand that they will work it out. And they will come to understand what dharma really is, that it's the manner in which we can live harmoniously with all of creation. Enjoy Anand with the minimum of suffering and the minimum of consumption. That is a unique little, a holy trinity to maximize Anand, minimize suffering and minimize consumption. We have that to offer the world. It's those three, especially the minimization of consumption, which is the foundation stone of sustainability. And in the Western economic models, until they understand that Tyag and Anand have an incredible relationship, they will not understand the need to diminish consumption. And that's their
Somewhere it's enshrined in the way we've been brought up, isn't it? Our own way we're brought up is that one, you keep the container clean, two, you use as much as you need, don't waste anything, three, give back more than you take.
Roost at that time. So his camaraderie with Jinnah at one point was well known. But why don't you also, do you condemn the killers of Gandhi being glorified in Modi's
Okay, let me ask Shehzad Poonawalla that. The contention by Mr. Altaf is that the killers of Gandhi are being feted by your party.
I'll get to that in just 30 seconds, but first let me tell you that, you know, the question that you're asking Omar Altaf is to basically deny his existence. If they believe genuinely that Mahatma Gandhi was the symbol of Hindu-Muslim unity, it obliterates Pakistan's existence. Because the very fact that Jinnah wanted Pakistan is because he felt that Muslims' interests wouldn't be secured by a country like India. So his entire existence is predicated on the fact that Mahatma Gandhi.
One second, Omar, one second, let him finish. Please,
Omar,
one second. No,
Omar, it's called tolerance. It's called tolerance. I know you neither have theological or constitutional basis for it, but that's how debates in India work. So you want to try and practice a little bit of tolerance, theologically and constitutionally difficult for you, but try to learn it from an Indian Muslim. It helps. Now please pipe down and wait your turn. That's how we do it in India. So let me explain to you what is problem of Pakistan. Pakistan's problem is that it is the only country in the world that lives in a schizophrenic bipolar hatred of another country. Its existence is built on hating India and Hindus exclusively. It is not a country. Countries have armies. This army has a country and it's predicated on Atank, Allah and America. Allah and America are long gone, they only have Atank left, and this is indoctrination of Atank which is taking place in the schools of Pakistan, in the madrasas of Pakistan, that you hate somebody as a kafir, you hate even Gandhi as a kafir, you project him as a communal leader and you spew hatred. Now you come to me. you are saying that we praise and glorify the killers of Gandhi. No, sir. Let me explain to you something. By the way, your favorite party, the Congress party, has inducted the killer of Gandhi, Godse's supporter, Mr. Babulal Chaurasia. But that's another point. I'm not going to dish an opposition party in front of a Pakistani like you. You have no lecture. You know who kills Gandhi every day? The idea of Jinnah, that Muslims and Hindus can't live together. And by the way, the idea of Gandhi has survived and the idea of Jinnah has collapsed. Please listen to me. An Indian Muslim stands here and represents the biggest, most democratic party in the world. Please do not, Zaka, I think I deserve to.
Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. The wives of 3 Pulwama martyrs have been on an indefinite protest for more than 10 days now. They have very simple demands: a road be renamed after their dear one, some want a statue to come up in his name, some want a sarkari naukri for the next of kin. All of these were promises made to them 4 years ago by the Rajasthan government. None of them have been met. And most importantly, the Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot has not even met them once. He says that this entire thing is being politicized at the behest of his opponents. I want to get into the details, the nitty-gritties of this story, but first, what exactly has been happening in Jaipur for the last 10 days?
An 11-day-long protest by 3 widows of CRPF jawans martyred in the 2019 Pulwama terror attack has turned into the latest political flashpoint in Rajasthan. Early in the morning,